24 hours after this 3-year-old disappeared. Dog picked up a scent the search team wasn't expecting. "24 hours after a 3-year-old disappeared, a dog picked up a scent the search team wasn't expecting." One of the parents' worst nightmares is if a child goes missing. A missing child at any age is terrifying. But when the child is very young and unable to take care of themselves, it's even worse. While the child is missing, the family's greatest fears begin, and oftentimes their imaginations get the best of them. Wondering what could be happening to their child at that moment are the worst thoughts a parent of a missing child has. Here's a story about 24 hours after this 3-year-old disappeared. A dog picked up a scent the search team wasn't expecting. On May 27, 2017, Gloria Cooper and her husband, Jeremy, were enjoying a very rare date night at Dave & Buster's in Houston, TX. They were able to go out because Gloria's 3-year-old son Ezra was camping with his father, Gloria's ex-boyfriend, 60 miles away from home. He had taken Ezra and his sibling camping at Sam Houston National Forest. The campsite was about an hour outside of Houston. The area is one of 4 national forests in the entire state of Texas and was a popular destination for campers and hikers. The area that Ezra's father took his children was the Stubblefield Lake area. It was a remote camping area off Forest Road 208. What Ezra's father thought would be an amazing family trip turned out to be his worst nightmare. It took just a minute or two of Ezra father looking away for Ezra to walk away from the camp and into the forest. It was only the beginning of this family's nightmare. It was about 3 p.m. when the family was supposed to be swimming and having fun. Instead, they were calling the New Waverly Fire Department to report a little boy missing. They told the authorities on the phone that they had no idea where the boy had gone. People were worried about Ezra. The temperature that day was in the 90s, which meant that heat stroke and dehydration were just 2 of the many dangers that Ezra could experience out in the woods alone. It had been hours and Ezra was still missing. Dozens of rescuers were trying to find Ezra in the blistering heat, and there was no sign of him. Finally, it was time to call his mother Gloria to give her the worst news of her life. They had to tell her that her son was missing. Gloria was enjoying her weekend with her husband when she got the call. The stranger on the other end of the phone told her that her son had wandered off from the campsite earlier that day. Nighttime was approaching and they couldn't find her son. Gloria was understandably upset that it took them so long to let her know that her son was missing. As soon as she got off the phone, she and Jeremy got in the car and headed for the lake. While they drove, Gloria was making panicked calls to her family members begging for their assistance. Her sister and her niece, who lived in California, got on the first flight to Houston so that they could join the rescue and search team. By the time they arrived in Houston, there were hundreds of people looking for the little boy. It was 1 a.m. and the rescuers still had not found him. The authorities knew that he was out there for hours and that time was running out. The chief of the New Waverly Fire Department, Jason Slott, was becoming desperate. He finally sent a call for more help. Fortunately for the family, Texas Equusearch Mounted Search and Recovery Team was close by there, an organization with over 600 volunteers who are trained in search and rescue of missing people in the very early hours. On May 28, 2017, one of Texas Equusearch volunteers, Jan Tipp, sent a request for volunteers to join in the search for Ezra. Regardless of the hour, they had a large group at the campsite. By 4:30 a.m., the search for Ezra was still on. David White, one of the volunteers, wrote on his blog that it was very eerie hearing the boy's family calling out his name, trying to find him in the dark. Unfortunately, by the time the sun came up, they still had not found the little boy by dawn. More volunteers had shown up to help. A group of rescuers from the Sam Houston Trails Coalition showed up because they had a lot of experience with the terrain. They joined the fire department and Texas Equusearch. There were also many concerned citizens who had arrived to help find Ezra. By early morning there were 200 people combing an area that covered 4 miles trying to find any sign of the boy. Some of the people used quads to get around, some used machetes to move the overgrowth of brush, and there were dogs on site to help the rescuers stick around for clues. As the hours passed, difficult decisions needed to be made that terrified Ezra's family. The president of Texas Equusearch, Tim Miller, launched a boat into a nearby lake. They used sonar equipment to search the water for signs of a body. Fortunately, they did not find anything in the lake. By midday, the heat was oppressive and people were losing hope that they would ever find Ezra. When it was time for Miller to hold a press conference, he didn't know what to say. Deep down, he thought that recovering the boy's body was all that they could hope for now. While everyone continued the search, one of the dogs alerted to something nearby. This brought their rescuers to that area as cousin 21-year-old Lalan Dunca was searching with her family and calling Ezra's name over and over again while the dog continued to track the scent. Lane called out again. This time they heard Ezra's little voice calling back to her. He was alive when the rescuers reached him. They found him sitting in an area. Tough, thick grass. Fortunately, he had only suffered from minor injuries as soon as they found him. They took him to his parents. From there he was taken to the Children's Hospital in the Woodlands, TX. It was the best news that they could have ever hoped for. Within a few days, Ezra was back home with his mother and had pretty much forgotten what happened to him when he was lost. It was, however, something his parents would never forget. Subscribe for more. Choose a next step.